Hey everyone, it's your buddy, it's your pal, it's Karnik, Star Wars Armada Explained. Today I am finally getting back to Commander Beck. So I originally had shot a Commander Beck video, and then 3 days after that the FAQ dropped and completely invalidated half of what I thought I had understood about how Commander Beck worked based on previous precedents, and it turns out that that wasn't correct. And so I took that video down, I managed to reach out to FFG and say, hey, I just need some more help understanding how this card effect works. They were able to put me in touch with the developer who had actually designed the card, and said, listen to their feedback. And if you have any additional questions, get a hold of us. So anything that I did receive is still considered unofficial because it's not officially written out in an FAQ or anything like that. But I mean, it's directly from the developer who made the card. And again, the direction I got was listen to what he has to say, and if there's any confusion, then get back a hold of us. So as far as I'm concerned, this is as official as we're going to get for quite some time. So Commander Beck, let's jump back in. So for Beck, there's some interactions here that even though I personally don't agree with, at least it's all explained and clearly laid out now for understanding and how it works within the rules. There still is a lot of confusion about how Commander Beck works. So my goal is to make sure that you guys are understanding how we accomplish that. The first thing I want to do is I want to read the comments that I got from the developer, Brooks. And they mention her timing has an implicit when you could resolve a command, because that's the only time that card would have an effect. The card can combo with other cards that reference resolving commands with command tokens, because that is what Beck is able to have happen. For example, like Admiral Piet, Director Krennic, Nav teams, we'll get into that. Beck cannot resolve or trigger more than once per command resolution. That's implicit timing. Again, what does that mean? I'll get into it, we'll explain. Beck cannot combo with Wolf Yvarlin, because his card effect requires a physical command token having been spent. Beck is not handing out any physical command tokens, period. That's why Beck doesn't work with Wolf Yvarlin, which we kind of already understood that. Which led to me to a follow-up question as well. Can this token from Beck be used alongside Pursuant? And his response is probably. Pursuant's language is a little weird, but it doesn't exclude the token like Piet does. So he says Pursuant can also combo with a standard squadron command token. So if that's the case of you can use a standard squadron command token along with Pursuant, he doesn't see why there isn't a reason why Beck also cannot work with Pursuant. He continues, there is a distinction between resolving a command as if you had spent a command token, which refers to the effect of the command, and spending a command token, which refers to the consumption of the resource. Just like how resolving a defense effect is distinct from spending a defense token. The rules language around command effects just isn't as clear as that as around defense effect. So in a nutshell, he's saying the reason why Beck sounds so confusing is because everything that makes Beck works is in RNG. It's just not clearly defined and spelled out as other sources like defense tokens. So everything still works. It's just unfortunate that essentially the game language is what's constraining our understanding. And so luckily, Brooks was able to clear this up. And some of you may still be confused by all this, but again, I'm going to lay it out as simply as I can. And if you still have additional questions, as you know, pop it on the YouTube comments or get a hold of me otherwise. All right, let's dive in. Let's get into the card. So let's read Commander Beck. So Commander Beck, at the start of her name, you'll see there's a dot or bullet point. Signifies that card is unique. You can only ever have one Commander Beck in your fleet. How do you know Beck equips to the officer slot? Look at the bottom left-hand corner of the card. You'll see the officer icon. Opposite that, you'll see that Beck is faction specific for the Empire at only 3 points. Oh my gosh. Like a lot of people, when we read the card, you might think, well, this card doesn't sound that good. And you are wrong. This card is amazing for only 3 points. What you can do with it, and I in a rare case, I'm going to give some examples again just to help people understand what this card can and can't do. So this is going to be, as you haven't already guessed, a little bit longer video. Let's dive right into the wording. During your activation, you may resolve a command as if you had spent a command token. If you do, gain 1 raid token of the matching type. You may resolve this effect twice per activation. Now again, you can only ever resolve a command once, so you can't like resolve a squadron token and then resolve another squadron token again. You know, when it's saying you may resolve this effect twice, it means you can use this card's ability twice to activate 2 of the 4 commands that are currently in the game, whether that be engineering, navigation, squadron, or concentrate fire. Okay, so let's break this down. Let's start from the top. During your activation, this specifically means that the ship needs to be able to be activated in order to use Commander Beck's ability. What does this mean? It means you cannot use Beck's ability to fuel things like fleet commands or something like Cataclysm on an onager, because this, as they say, you know, it's at the start of the ship phase or in the after the start of the ship phase, etc. Essentially, you know, no ships have activated, but you can spend tokens to do fleet commands. Again, Beck only works when that ship is activating, not before. So you, again, cannot use Beck for fleet commands or something like Cataclysm. So you may resolve a command as if you had spent a command token. So as you know, normally how commands are resolved, you either resolve them by either spending a dial, spending a token, or you spend that dial and token together. That's the only 3 ways you can resolve a command. So when you're choosing to resolve Beck's card effect, you are specifically saying, I am resolving this command as a token only. I physically do not have any command tokens on my ship, but this card allows me to spend or allows me to resolve this command as if I had spent the command token of that type. When you finish resolving that command is then when you gain a raid token that matches the command that you resolved. So for example, say I want to do concentrate fire. I say, okay, I'm going to use Beck's ability. I'm going to use the command token ability of the concentrate fire, which is I can reroll 1 die. I reroll my 1 die. I then gain a raid token of the concentrate fire command type, which, as you know, for raid, you are prevented from resolving that command until that raid is cleared, either by discarding a dial or spending, or discarding. It's either spend or discard a command token of the same type. Now, Beck cannot clear raid because, again, raid, the only time you can get rid of it is when a ship reveals a command dial. And when a ship reveals a command dial, you're not resolving any commands, so therefore Beck wouldn't be able to work. It's only in the reveal command step is when you can decide to discard the dial to clear all raid, or spend a command token to clear a raid token. It's the only times you can get rid of raid unless some other cards come along that change that. So no, Beck can't get rid of raid. So just want to make sure it's being upfront and make sure people understood that. Okay, so that's how Beck works, and you can do this twice in that ship's activation. So some people might be thinking, but boy, that raid sounds pretty counterproductive if I have a ship that, you know, wants to do squadron commands or navigation commands. And there are some specific situations where that's going to be useful. And again, I'm going to get to that. We're going to continue on talking about some other cards and some of the other effects that I was talking about. The biggest one, as I've already mentioned, is that Beck does not work with Wolf of Ireland because he requires that a physical command token has been spent. Beck is not spending a physical command token. It's automatically resolving the command as if one had been spent. A physical token was not actually spent, though. Again, that's why it does not work with Wolf of Ireland. You're not getting free tokens. And to follow up on that, when you do use Beck's ability, you're not ever getting a physical real token. You can't decide, oh, you know what, I decide that I don't want to resolve the command as a token. I want I want to take it. That's not how that works at all. You don't get free tokens to put on your ship with Beck. One neat thing I almost forgot about though, like say for example, this Archidans already has a navigation token on the ship already, but you decide that maybe you want to hold on to it, so you use Beck's ability to resolve navigation command as token only. It doesn't get rid of your navigation token on your ship. Essentially, it's just looking at, okay, it does have a physical command token, but that doesn't matter because Beck's card effect is just automatically resolving the command as token effect. So it's not getting rid of any of your tokens, it's not replacing them, etc. Again, I want to make sure I was being upfront and clear on that. Can Beck be used with, for example, Admiral Piet? Yes, initially I didn't think that you could, but I found out that, essentially for Admiral Piet, all Piet cares about was, are you resolving the command as token only? Yes, then you can choose to use Beck's card effect, and when you do, you have like a short interrupt period where Admiral Piet steps in and says, hey, great job, Commander Beck, I'm going to take it from here, and he's going to take that command token, and he can turn that into a dial. So yes, Admiral Piet does work with Commander Beck. Now, what you can't do is, even if you do have a physical token of the type that you're trying to resolve, remember, as per my Admiral Piet video, you are choosing to resolve that command at the very start as token only. So when you use Piet to turn it into a dial, the command resolution still was, you start as spending as token only. You eventually finish it as if you had spent a dial, but this still does not allow you to do token into dial plus token or some other effect. Again, to be upfront and clear about that. So when you choose to use Beck's ability to resolve a command as token only, Piet steps in, turns it into a dial, but still does not allow you to add some other token or something else onto that. You can only resolve it as dial only at the end of that. Okay. So yes, works with Piet. And again, as mentioned, Beck does work with things like nav teams or engine techs or Ravager. Like, for example, if that concentrate fire, if it's on SSD and you have Ravager equipped, when you go use Beck's ability to add a concentrate fire command as token only, you can use Ravager to turn that from just what it was before, which was a reroll, into adding a die per its normal effect. Same deal with like nav teams and engine techs. When you're choosing to resolve the navigation command, you can choose, engine text, just all it requires is that something was spent to resolve the command. That's all engine text cares about. Nav teams is, was a token spent? Yes. Did you spend it on either a speed change or do you want to spend it on adding an extra click? That's all nav teams cares about. So Beck can, resolve those types of abilities. All right, I'm going to check the CARM real quick, make sure I didn't miss anything. So yeah, resolves of effects for Admiral Piet or Krennic, nav teams, Ravager, etc. Doesn't work with Yvarlin. Again, Commander Beck doesn't replace any command tokens already on the ship. For example, if ship already has a navigation token and you choose to resolve Beck's effect as token only, the physical token would remain, and the navigation command would resolve as if a token had been spent. If the ship has a raid token on it, Beck does not allow a command to bypass raid. Beck can't be used to clear raid. We've already touched on that. Again, Beck is only resolved during your activation, meaning that ship's activation. Okay, I pretty much have covered all of the interactions of Beck. So now I want to get into what are some examples of uses for Beck. And some of my favorites, I'm just going to cover two. There's a lot. Beck is just going to change. Smart people are going to figure out how Beck works, and Beck is, you're going to see very, very, very quickly rise to cream of the crop status. Beck is just so good, especially with Thrawn. So you might be thinking that raid is detrimental, that raid is harmful, and it's going to stop ships from being able to do whatever they want. And the answer to that is not really if you have a plan for it. So Beck, for example, this command Archidans, let's say this command Archidans has engine techs equipped, okay? So we'll say that the first turn he reveals his navigation dial, he putters along, he does his thing. Start of the second turn, you reveal your navigational dial again, but you have an enemy ship in range. Or maybe you have a squadron in range. So you say, oh, I'm going to use Beck. I'm going to activate a squadron. And you know what? I'm going to shoot that ship. And oh man, one of my red dice were blank. I'm going to use Beck to do concentrate fire, reroll a die, got some damage out of it. And now I have my navigational dial, and it's going to allow my Archidans to move around, and then I can still engine text off that. So perfect, right? And so then next round, what you do is you take the top dial and you just chuck it. You discard it to clear a raid, and then you can use Beck to keep generating like concentrate fire reroll, and also you can still use it to resolve a navigation command token to generate speed change, and then still also being able to engine tech off that, which for Archidans, it's great because the only yaw they ever really get is at the end, and so you're not really restricted by really needing a navigation command. Is it still helpful? Sure, to get the extra yaw. But if you're at speed 1 and you have engine techs, it's like a Presido speed 2 with double click, and it's unrateable, it's unstoppable, it can't be sliced. So you just chuck the dial every single turn, and you don't even care. You still get to do what you want, and you have reroll ability for red dice, and it's 3 points. Just Beck is mind-blowingly good. And that's not to say that, it's going to make an Archidans, super overpowered. It's just giving you more tools in the toolbox for how to build these things. Because before, it just was really limiting. They still are kind of limited, but it's just more options. And this is just one example. I've got like half a dozen. I'm not going to show, I'm not going to reveal all of my secrets. Some of the stuff you guys need to figure out yourself. But another one I wanted to show is Gazanti. Now, right, one thing I want to point out real quick, Beck does not work with CommsNet, and I'm sure you probably already know why, is again, CommsNet requires that there's a physical token on the ship. You can't CommsNet a token, to another ship, but part of it is the fact that Beck only works in the moment of resolution of command. Again, you can't save any tokens, and CommsNet is after the reveal command dial step. Is the only time that you can send out a token, so no, Beck doesn't work with CommsNet, but where Beck excels at is actually with repair crews. So the biggest thing about the Gazantis and repair crews is like they have to keep revealing dial after dial of repair command to get the benefit of repair crews. Well, now it doesn't even matter. You just chuck that dial every single time, and you can resolve the the repair command to take a damage card off a ship, and then you can still use navigation token to help speed jank your Gazanti, whether you want to slow it down or speed it up. And that's kind of like my biggest issue with them was like they were crashing into stuff because I couldn't control their speed. And now you can do both, and you can still do these things with Beck. And it's just, oh man, Beck is just the options. And for 3 points, just I cannot understate that my personal belief Beck is way undercosted. Is it broken undercosted? I don't think it's broken undercosted, but I definitely feel like this should have been a 5-point card and not a 3-point card. And you might even think, well, this seems like this is great for Command 1 or Command 2 ships. Why would you ever put it on like a Command 3 ship? I don't think she's great on an SSD. There might be something that comes out that would facilitate that. But I've used Beck on a Star Destroyer with the Relentless title. It turns your SSD or your ISD into Presido Command 2, and then you can do all those crazy things, especially if you get like Relentless with Piet and Beck on there, and essentially you have a Command 1 ship, and you can do crazy things, and it gets ridiculous. I'll let you guys play around with it. But that is, this video I think has gone on long enough. I think I've shown enough examples. That's Commander Beck. Of course, if you feel like I missed something or got something wrong, please be sure to leave a comment, point it out, let me know. But I think you guys are going to be just as excited about playing with Commander Beck as I am. And again, I still have personal concerns about this card and how it may affect the future of the meta. But that was the developer's intent with the card, and if it ever gets too crazy, they can always change it. So again, thank you guys for joining me, and I'll catch you all next time.